So we will go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome. I am Sarah Nicolay, Research Assistant at Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging. Thank you for joining us today. This webinar will be recorded and we'll be sharing the link with all of you in an email in the next week. Please feel free to share the recording with any colleagues who could not join us today. You may submit a question at any time using the Q&A or chat feature at the bottom of your screen. We have staff monitoring to convey your questions to our presenters and to answer any technical questions you may have. If you would like to tweet with us during today's webinar, please use our Twitter handle at benrose1908 and our event hashtag caregiving conference. I don't see Orion, so I will continue. Thank you for joining us today for our annual Caregiving Conference, Engaging Caregivers in Evidence-Based Programs. Today's webinar will explore successes and challenges in the dissemination of evidence-based programs to family and friend caregivers. It is now my honor to welcome our first speakers this morning, Dr. David Bass and Ms. Rachel Cannon. Dr. Bass is the Senior Vice President, Senior Research Scientist, and Director of the Center for Research and Education at the Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging. He has led nearly 100 funded research projects on topics such as coping with chronic illness. Let me unshare that.
Is that okay, Sarah?
Yeah, sorry, I got a pop-up. That distracted me. Okay, so he has led nearly 100 funded research projects on topics such as coping with chronic illness, family caregiving, quality of care and services, and dementia care and services, a consistent theme of Dr. Bass's work. All the initiatives of the Center for Research and Education is focused on translating research into practical applications that enhance the wellness of and quality of care for older adults and their family members. Also presenting with Dr. Bass is Rachel Cannon, a Senior Research Analyst at Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging and Lead Analyst on the Best Practice Caregiving Initiative. She also works on several other research projects focused on dementia caregiving and evidence-based programs, as well as caregiving in diverse communities, which is another specialty area of Benjamin Rose's program of research. Please join me in welcoming our first speakers, Dr. David Bass and Rachel Cannon.
Thank you, Sarah. Welcome to our annual Caregiving Conference. It's a pleasure to be here and very happy to talk today about best practice caregiving, which is an online resource of evidence-based dementia caregiving programs. And I'll be starting off the presentation, and then my colleague Rachel Cannon will do a brief demo of best practice caregiving. So best practice caregiving is a collaboration among 6 organizations now. You can see them listed here: Geographical Society of America, Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging, Family Caregiver Alliance, Bridge Builder Strategies, Quality Process, and most recent partner, Diverse Elders Coalition. And just want to express our appreciation to our wonderful funders, the John A. Hartford Foundation, RRF Foundation for Aging, and Archstone Foundation. There are approximately 15 million family or friend caregivers in the US, and research that has looked at family caregiving, not just for dementia, but for other chronic conditions, generally shows that caregivers, family members, or friends who are caregivers for people living with dementia experience more negative effects from caregiving than other caregivers. They assist with more tasks, more stressful tasks, and oftentimes the person with dementia has less capacity to participate in their own care. That's not to say that all family caregivers experience negative effects from caregiving, but the probability of that is greater for caregivers of people living with dementia. We believe that a major advance in the field over the last 30 years has been the development of many non-pharmacological programs that have been tested in research and shown to have beneficial effects on outcomes for family and friend caregivers. Some estimates say there are about 200 of these types of programs that have been tested in rigorous research. A subset of those programs also have shown beneficial impacts for persons living with dementia. And some of the programs also are ready for scaling in communities. The problem is that these programs are really not widely available. And one of the reasons for that is that professionals often have limited knowledge about these programs. And it's no easy feat to try to find information about these programs. You can go into the research literature and look at research articles, which is tedious, and many people don't have access to those journals. If you do go into those articles, oftentimes the programs are really not fully described. The emphasis of a research article tends to be on the research methodology and the study findings. So if you're working in a healthcare community organization and you're looking for a program that you might want to implement for caregivers, reading a research article oftentimes doesn't give you enough information about the program. Particularly lacking in articles is detailed information about the implementation features of a program, such as what kind of training do you need to do the program, what kind of manuals are available, what other delivery tools are required, is there an IT system that is needed. All the very detailed kinds of things you would need to know if you're working in an organization and wanting to choose a program. You also have a very difficult time finding information about how programs are working in other communities. You could talk to somebody you happen to know who's delivering a program. You could talk to great colleagues at the Administration for Community Living that has done great work in this. But really, it's not easy to know how these programs are working in other communities. And that's a theme for our session today that we're going to focus in on as we go through our presentation. Now, Best Practice Caregiving is an online resource that was launched in January of 2020. The goal for Best Practice Caregiving was to really increase the implementation or delivery of evidence-based dementia caregiving programs that have proven effectiveness for caregivers in rigorous research and have been demonstrated to be feasible for implementation in real-world service settings. And I'm going to talk more about the eligibility for inclusion in a second. Best Practice Caregiving is an online resource that was designed for easy use, and it's free. And it was designed in its current form for professionals to use. And I want to emphasize that. When you go to the Best Practice Caregiving site, you have to keep in mind it was created for professionals, not for consumers, at least not yet. And you will find on that website 44 of what we consider the top evidence-based dementia caregiving programs. And you'll find complete program descriptions, great detail about the features of a program. You'll find summaries and basic information about the research findings. You'll find information about the experiences that organizations that have offered these programs as a regular service. And you'll also be able to access bibliographies for all the published literature on each program. And you'll have the name or someone you can contact to find out more and to get really into thinking about what it would take to deliver a program. Now, Best Practice Caregiving is located on the Family Caregiver Alliance website. Family Caregiver Alliance is a California-based nonprofit, and they have one of the most widely used websites in the field of caregiving. That website has lots of information for caregivers. And if you go to the website on the home page, you'll find a link to the Best Practice Caregiving website. You can also get to Best Practice Caregiving from the Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging website. And On the screen now are the eligibility criteria to be included in best practice caregiving. So inclusion of programs. So which programs did we allow into best practice caregiving? And the eligibility issue is a difficult one. It was hard for us to really decide what were the characteristics that a program had to meet. We don't have all the programs in best practice caregiving that are eligible. We're adding programs continuously that become eligible, but we have a pretty good start. And the three criteria, one of them is there has to be a strong research base with proven outcomes demonstrated in controlled research. And those findings have to have been published in a peer-reviewed journal with at least one beneficial impact for caregivers. There had to be at least one organization that had offered the program as a regular service. We're equally concerned with the feasibility of implementation as we are with the research base. And so we wanted to actually have a program that wasn't just done in a research context. And finally, the program had to be available for replication so that if a community organization or a healthcare system wanted to implement that program again, they'd be able to do it. Here's a list of our 44 programs currently in best practice caregiving. Again, we are adding programs that become eligible or that we've missed. If you know of programs that aren't in here, please let us know. We'd appreciate it, and we'll go through a process to determine their eligibility. We think that programs that have been demonstrated in research to work and that have been shown feasible to implement in a real-world setting, that those programs should be recognized in a special way. And that's why we put them on best practice caregiving. That's not to say that there aren't programs that haven't been tested in research that are good. There are good programs that haven't been tested in research. And there are good programs in research studies that haven't been implemented in real-world settings. But we think it's important to acknowledge programs that have gone through a rigorous testing and that have been shown feasible to implement. And now I'm going to pass to my colleague, Rachel Cannon, who's going to give you a very brief demo of best practice caregiving. And on my slide here is the link. So Rachel, I'll pass to you.
Thanks, David. Good morning, everyone. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to share my screen. So as David said, I'm just going to give a real quick, brief demo of the best practice caregiving website. This here is our landing page at bpc.caregiver.org. So you can learn more information about the site here, the different information that's included. You can learn more about how to use the database, more about our generous funders, how to stay in contact. This button here to learn more about the project itself and more about the inclusion methodology that David just went through. There's also some additional information. We have a readiness questionnaire, frequently asked questions, and how to contact us. So just a quick view of the landing page here. If I scroll back up, I can click to view the different programs. And this will take me to a page that includes a brief description of all 44 programs in best practice caregiving in alphabetical order here. I can use the search bar here up top to search for specific programs or specific information I want to find, and can also on the side here use the filtering feature. So the filtering feature allows us to filter down by different characteristics of programs that we're looking for. So just for example here, I can filter by different types of dementia that the program is for, whether there's other chronic conditions that the program is for. You can filter by the different languages that the program's available in. So just for an example, if I'm looking for a program that can be offered in Spanish, I click the filter button and it filters down to those 18 programs. You can also filter by cost or fee to obtain a license to deliver the program. And there are a bunch more filters here. If I want to filter by the mode of delivery, or if I'm looking for a program that can be delivered by webinar or online, this filters down again to 6 different programs. Who the program is for, so if it's for caregivers or persons with dementia, you can filter by the different types of assistance that the program offers. And I won't go through all of these, but you can see there's a few more filtering characteristics, the type of delivery person, whether training is provided, and then the different study findings or outcomes from research articles. So there's a couple different features here. You can use the compare feature where you can compare up to 3 programs side by side. And then if you want to learn more about a specific program, you can click this learn more button here. So I'm going to just select these first 3 programs here to compare and click compare now. And this brings us to the compare evidence-based programs page. So these 3 programs here, I can look at the brief description and continue scrolling down and just compare that some of the different information about these 3 programs. So again, the target populations, the different costs of the program here, the different format that the program's offered in, so that one-on-one format or group format, the different session lengths. There's a lot of information here, so I won't go through all of it, but again, you can look at the different types of assistance that the program provides and different program characteristics such as staffing and training that's available. I can also compare some of the information about the survey of delivery sites that we did, and David will talk more about this survey in a little bit and some of the information we collected, but you can look at the different delivery site settings among those delivery organizations, and then some of the experiences those sites had, such as the different perceived outcomes for caregivers and persons with dementia, and some of the challenges that they faced with delivering the program. And then finally, you can also look at the research evidence side by side. So I'm looking at those different outcomes that were published in research articles across the different programs. So back up at the top of the page here, I can either go back to searching different programs if I'm interested in looking at a different program, or if I want to learn more, even more in-depth information about a program, clicking the See Program button here takes me to the comprehensive program profile where I can learn more about this specific program. So again, here up top, we just have that very basic information overview of the program itself. And on the side, can learn more about who to contact if you have questions about the program or want to learn even more information. And then we can also view all of the different program articles. So all of the research that's been published here, these are different links that will take you to those research articles if they're available to look at. And then we can expand information on these different buttons here. So the different program information, again, the program cost and financial support that's available, different program components, so the theoretical frameworks, if there was one, number of sessions and mode of delivery. We have a whole table here you can view about the different types of assistance, who that assistance is provided to and how it's provided. I'll just keep going here. You can look at the different staffing of program and different training that's available. So it's really just more in-depth information that you can see on the compare feature. There's a whole section on the different survey of delivery sites. So again, you can see how many sites we surveyed for each program and how many completed surveys we got back. And then some different organization and program information. So their delivery history, who they were serving, and number of participants they had in the past 12 months. Different characteristics of the persons that they served, different characteristics of the participants that they targeted their marketing towards, any adaptations that were made to the program to better fit the needs of their communities, different languages that the program was actually offered in by these organizations or sites, and then just so on, bunch of different information about the organization characteristics Also some additional information about the site experiences. So again, that perceived improvement or impact on outcomes for caregivers and persons with dementia. Some different strategies that the organizations used to support the program and obtain resources and funding. And then any major or minor challenges that organizations face with delivering the program. So I know I'm going through this really quickly here, but there is a ton of different information about those sites that we surveyed. And then finally, the research evidence here. You can look more in depth at those different outcomes that were researched in different studies, and can even expand this table here to learn more about the different studies and specific beneficial outcomes. And then finally, the study characteristics. So if you want to know more about that specific study, you can learn more here. So that's, again, just a real brief demo of the site. Just encourage everyone to check it out. And again, that link is bpc.caregiver.org. So I'll pass back to David now.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint and pick up the slides where we were. And I'm going to just very quickly go through some of the findings from best practice caregiving, particularly those that have paved the way for our next phase of work. So one of the things that we've thought when we started best practice caregiving, and that we assumed based on the studies that have been done of evidence-based programs, we didn't expect to find too many of these programs being delivered widely in communities. And we were surprised because what we found were 350 of these programs were being already offered in organizations around the country. And a few organizations, 25 actually, were offering more than one. So right off the bat, we realized that these programs were more available to families than we had anticipated, or really anybody had anticipated. In terms of which kinds of organizations were delivering these programs, there was a wide range. The three most common types of organizations doing one of the best practice caregiving programs were health systems, area agencies on aging, and Alzheimer's Association or Alzheimer's specific associations, Alzheimer's chapters or Alzheimer's specific organizations. Here were the 10 most widely delivered programs in alphabetical order. These 10 programs all had more than 10 delivery sites or organizations offering them. Here's some characteristics of the staff who deliver these programs and the people served by the program. So on average, across the 44 programs, and this is information from 2019, when we last surveyed our delivery sites. The average program had served just under 94 individuals dealing with dementia in the past 12 months. And the average length of time they had been offering a program was 32 months. In terms of staffing, you can see a breakdown of the percent of programs that were being delivered by someone with a graduate degree, bachelor's degree, and associate degree. And you can see the disciplines of delivery staff with social workers dominating that. Here are some of the common funding sources used by organizations that were delivering the program. We're very interested in how these programs are being sustained and how they are being financially supported. So we found a wide range of sources of funding and many programs that had multiple sources of funding. We were very interested in what were the challenges that organizations face doing these programs. And there were 9 categories that we focused in on that are listed here. And we wanted to know which of these were the most pressing concerns of programs as far as successful delivery. And what we found, the 2 most common problems that were reported by organizations offering these programs were marketing the program and engaging caregivers to participate. And you can see other challenges were also important. but those two really rose to the top. And so 3 key takeaways from our findings of the delivery sites that were doing best practice caregiving programs in 2019 were, first of all, that there were more healthcare and community organizations implementing these programs than previously known. Second, we found that marketing and engaging caregivers were the most challenging difficulties reported by organizations doing these programs. And third, and I didn't get into this in any prior slide, but what we found were many caregivers were accessing best practice caregiving on the Family Caregiver Alliance website. Now, as I said at the beginning, we designed this for professionals. So there isn't information in the current version of best practice caregiving for caregivers to find programs in their communities. We didn't set out to do that. We really didn't set out to do that because we didn't think these programs were widely available, at least not as widely as they are. But caregivers were coming there. They were looking online for information about programs they could use. Unfortunately, at this moment, they can't find that in best practice caregiving. And so that sets the stage for our next phase of work, which is development of the consumer version of best practice caregiving. And we've done that. We've started that work this month, and we're hoping to create a version of this for caregivers to be able to find the top programs in their communities. And it's going to have everything caregivers need to know to choose a program. We also know that since marketing and outreach to caregivers and engaging caregivers were the top issues that were concerns of delivery sites, we think this the consumer version of best practice caregiving will be an important marketing tool to help delivery sites reach more caregivers. We want this to be the place caregivers can go to find comprehensive information. And we've had 35,000 users of best practice caregiving in the first 18 months. Most were professionals, some were caregivers. We anticipate many more people than that using the consumer version. And finally, we knew one of our limitations was not enough information around how programs have been adapted for caregivers from diverse communities. So we've engaged the Diverse Elders Coalition and its 6 member organizations to join us as a partner, and we are going to be expanding the information around how extensive cultural adaptations of programs are, and whether they're being used by caregivers from diverse communities, and if so, detail about that. We'll also be adding more programs that are targeted to diverse caregivers. We plan to launch the consumer version in the first quarter of 2023. And that's the end of our slides and presentation, and I'll pass back to Sarah.
Thanks, David. So we have time for a few questions before the next presentation. The first one is, how do you find programs that have become eligible?
We search everywhere. We do literature searches. We look at reports from funding organizations. We look through programs at conferences of professional associations. We had a tremendous advisory committee for best practice caregiving who knew about programs and put us in touch with people. We vetted many programs that didn't get in, but we're always looking for new programs, and we have programs waiting to add to best practice caregiving. I think there'll be probably 10 or so new programs added in the next 6 months. So the programs will be expanding.
That's great. The next question is, curious about your information on Savvy Caregiver in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. The Healthy Living Center of Excellence through Elder Services of Merrimack Valley is the main local trainer for lay leaders and contact here, but they don't appear to be listed in your demo. So how do people get down to this more local information as opposed to contacting a person in Georgia?
That's a great question, and you can't do it in best practice caregiving now. But when we get the consumer version up and running, you'll be able to find specific delivery sites, you'll know specifically where the program's offered, who could get that program, any eligibility criteria, any cost, how the program helps. but you can't do it now in the professional version.
Gotcha. Thank you. The next question is, how do you keep the database up to date?
Very challenging. We will be going back to developers of programs and repeatedly going back to organizations delivering the programs to do our best to keep the information up to date. And we are committed to sustaining this for the long term. Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging and Family Caregiver Alliance both have made an ongoing commitment to this, even after grant funding is done, and we're going to do our best.
Sounds good. Our last question is, how does best practice caregiving collect and evaluate a total of caregivers in a geographical area?
Can you say that again, please, Sarah?
How does best practice caregiving collect and evaluate a total of caregivers in a geographical area?
Well, we ask organizations to tell us how many people they serve and the characteristics of those people. And to the extent that an organization delivering a program knows that, that's where we get the information from. We haven't at this point gone directly to caregivers and asked them about the programs they're using.
Thank you. So it is now my honor to introduce our next speaker. Erin Long is an Aging and Disability Program Coordinator at the Administration on Aging within the Administration for Community Living. Erin is the program lead for the Administration on Aging state, community, and tribal grant programs dedicated to supporting persons living with Alzheimer's disease and related dementias and their caregivers. The Administration for Community Living's Alzheimer's disease and related dementias program are dedicated to building and expanding dementia capability across the United States through culturally competent education and training on a broad range of dementia-related issues, as well as the provision of direct services through evidence-based interventions. In addition to being responsible for the planning and development of the programs, she provides programmatic guidance and oversight for all program activities, including the National Alzheimer's and Dementia Resource Center, as well as serving as a federal member of the National Alzheimer's Project Act Advisory Council on Alzheimer's Research, Care, and Services. She holds a Master of Social Work from Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia, and I will now turn it over to Erin.
Good morning. I'm so happy to be here with you all today. I want to thank Benjamin Rose for inviting me to talk to you about marketing and outreach for programs to support people living with dementia and their caregivers. Getting the marketing and outreach right is the key to success in any program, and it has to start the day you make the decision to deliver in your choice of an intervention. So next slide. So before I talk about the ways in which you want to consider doing the outreach for your work, I just want to spend a minute talking about choosing the programs that you might want to implement in your community. The reason I want to start here is because you need to choose a program that meets the needs of the people you intend to serve. Sometimes we think we know what people want, but we might not be. They may not be as receptive to what we think they want. So when you're exploring your options, there's a number of things that you need to consider before you invest your time and money in a program. You need to talk to community leaders and those service providers, get some buy-ins and some champions to support the decision so that they know, you know what they know when you're planning your program. Is your community ready for what you want to offer? Or are there steps that you need to take to sort of prime the community so that they have an appetite for your services? You need to know your community, ask the right questions, and think about how it's going to work now and what kind of future it would have. In this slide, I just sort of have a bunch of questions. I'm not going to go through them all, but it's really important that you engage your community and you know what they want. At ACL, I'm responsible for a fairly large program that makes grants across the nation to states and communities. So we give states grants at the and they distribute it, the work through the funds through the state. And then we also have an opportunity for communities, but I'll tell you a little bit more about that at the very end of this. So, just when you're thinking about what you want to do, inform what you've tried before and what your community is ready for and has the infrastructure for is even a question, is an important question. In the corner of this slide, there is a link to a document we at ACL created to support organizations trying to choose an intervention for their community. And it has a bunch of questions, and that link is to the document that's hosted on the National Alzheimer's and Dementia Resource Center website that is funded by the Administration for Community Living. So next slide. So now you have your intervention, you have your team trained up and you're good to go. Now all you need are the people to take you up on the service that you're planning to deliver. And I often say, if you build it, will they come? Some of us remember a movie called Field of Dreams, and that was sort of the logo of that movie, or the tagline of that movie. But a lot of times my experience has been that community providers think they have the program and that they don't need to have a marketing plan that is designed specifically to engage the participants that you anticipated being interested in your work. Once you pick an intervention, if you haven't already, you need to be developing that outreach and marketing plans about how you're going to get the people engaged. Without solid advance preparation, it's not likely to be as easy for them to find you even. Caregivers are really busy and you want to make things, you need to come to them with what you have to offer. So next slide. So you need a well-articulated plan. You have to be able to, essentially, you have to be able to have sort of an elevator speech, why what you're offering is good for your community. You need to know your audience, those paid caregivers, or is it family caregivers? I mean, there's not, words are very important. So it's not that it's not one size fits all. So, and what you expect the outcomes to be. So when you tell a community that you're bringing a service or a support to them, you need to be able to explain to them that this will, help you feel less burden or help you be more confident as a caregiver or improve quality of life. You need to know, what kind of commitment is it going to take for the program participants? Is these days, is it in person? Is it virtual? Is it a hybrid, a mix of the two? These days, you really have to be nimble and be able to pivot based on whatever is occurring in the world at that time. For the next slide, please. So you need that well thought out plan. When I was sort of thinking about how this was going to play out in the presentation, I was trying to figure out the best way to represent how a marketing plan will work for you. A marketing plan is really a long-term thing. It's not you throw something out there and everybody, it's so great. And we all know it's great because this is what we do and we love, and people aren't in this work because we're not passionate about it. But it really is a process. And so when I was looking, I was looking online at sales programs and things, because kind of this is sales, but it's more important because it's all about the people. You build this larger outreach program to build awareness of what you're doing. And then it's step by step. So you build the awareness that goes to the larger audience. Then people might notice it and take an interest in it, and they might see it again and learn a little bit more. And then they start considering whether they might want to take you up on whatever service it is you're offering, and then they engage. I feel really bad that I had the word engage in red in such small letters at the bottom of the upside down pyramid, but that's what it gets funneled down to. That you could reach thousands of people and then end up with 100. But that's a great number to have, to helping 100 people in your community. So while it's a small, the top of that pyramid at the bottom is a small piece, it's the fruit of your work. And it is very important to understand that that's the way it will likely play out for you. I've been doing this for a minute, and we have seen lots of different strategies for outreach and awareness. So in my mind, the marketing plan the outreach and awareness are comprised within the marketing plan, because there are so many different possible components, things that you might not think of as necessarily traditional marketing plans that you need to consider. The next slide, please. So there's you really have to be strategic when you're making your marketing plan, and you have to have messages that are designed to engage people. You need to know your audience. You have to create a campaign that speaks the language, and I'm not talking about like English or Spanish, or it's speaking the language of the people. You need to look like them, you need to talk like them, or the people that are inviting them to the service. Don't expect that one size fits all. It's not the same for a paid caregiver as it is a family caregiver. If you're doing a training program, let's say you're working on training law enforcement, well, you can't use the same language to train law enforcement and firefighters or EMS workers. You have to tailor all of your work to the community that you're serving, and knowing like words matter. There's a big nomenclature initiative going on right now, trying to figure out the best words that work across the majority of audiences, so that everybody's speaking the same language. But even within cultures, there's words that don't resonate with certain communities. Some communities, there isn't really language for caregivers, because if you're a family member, you're a caregiver. That's just what family does. So that's an important thing to keep in mind when you're putting something together. We've also found that using positive language designed to tell people how they can benefit from what you're offering is really helpful, especially when people are new to a diagnosis or new to caregiving. Sort of taking not a negative, but a more intimidating slant may not make people engage. And it can be a long time, like I said before, that awareness to interest, to consideration, to engagement. Those are the things that using the right language is going to get you to it. And in the green box, sometimes noted that sometimes you have to offer something a little bit less intimidating to earn trust and get people engaged in your program. In some communities we've worked in, they will do, for instance, a brain health program. People want to keep healthy. You can engage a senior because they want to do the right thing. They want to eat right. And once you get into a brain health program, then you can talk about those the nuances of cognitive impairment and maybe get people to do a mini MOCA or a mini mental or a MOCA test, and get them thinking about, maybe that they need to go get to the doctor and see if there's something that they should talk about. But those are really important things, as well as just being appropriate in your strategy, using plain language. Use language that, if you're going to put something in the public, use language that everybody speaks. Those 10-cent words, do not help. You need to use language that is accessible for everybody who's going to be in the audience for what you're offering. Use people, use authentic messaging, people that look like them, talk with them, especially when working in diverse communities. It's so, so important. And key, use modes of media that is intended for the audience that you're targeting. One of the things that we learned, even like when it was the COVID vaccine with seniors and people in rural communities, everybody was like, oh, just go online and you can sign up. Well, that didn't work because a lot of people don't have access to online. So people had to pivot very early, and health systems especially had to pivot to make sure that the audience that they're targeting, these seniors, all had access to the ability to get a vaccine. So the same sort of thing applies here. Don't make an assumption that someone living in a rural community, rural Alaska or North Dakota, has internet and will be able to, you're going to offer them a online support group or a memory cafe when bandwidth just isn't there. So those are the kinds of things you need to keep in mind. Next slide, please. So there's, depending on your organization, some people have to do marketing without a budget, and you really have to get creative. For instance, if you have a grant, like the organizations that I work with, a lot of times they do have money to work with a professional marketing organization. Sometimes that helps, sometimes it doesn't. But marketing without a budget, there are lots of options for you. There's lots of people, entities that are partners. You just have to, sometimes go old school and reach out to the radio stations. Older adults listen to the radio. They'll listen to the interviews. They'll hear an ad. They read newsletters from their church or the local senior organization. Get them to write stories for you. Do media interviews. I just had an organization, a local community organization in Cape Cod that reached out to the Cape Cod Times, and they got an article in the newspaper about all the great things that they're going to be doing and what they're going to be offering. and hopefully that will start a pipeline. One of the other presenters here, I remember when they started their ACL funded grant, they got some media up front, and then when they were ready to open, they actually did have some people ready to go. They didn't have to their pipeline was built because they got that awareness up front even before that and it was going through all those steps while they were building their program and getting their people trained. Libraries are an amazing source. Older adults, caregivers, they go to the library. It's a great quiet place for people to go. And, I wrote on here, trying an ambassador program with former participants. If you have people that have participated in your program and they appreciated it, there is no better voice in the community than somebody that's already done it. And it doesn't usually cost you any money. My personal experience, oftentimes I bring my family into it because my mother's living with Alzheimer's, and my mother's adult day program, they called My Father Loves their program. It took a long time to get them. It took them 6 months to go through that awareness to consideration to acceptance. But and now he is gave them a testimonial video on their website to say how great their services are, and he's a voice from the community. Use those voices in the community. I think the next slide would be great. So marketing with a budget, very different situation. You can get those professional looking brochures and public service announcements. You can, radio advertisements, newspaper advertisements. The Pima Council on Aging, PCOA in Tucson, Arizona, is a grantee of ACL that is the example to the left on the screen. And they developed a televised public service announcement in concert with a radio, print, and social media campaign. marketing can be timing of marketing can be everything. And in Tucson, they understand that families visit during the holidays, and that's when the revelations come that something's going on with possibly, or something may be going on with a loved one's cognition. And so they decided that because they get these upticks around the holiday season, that they would have this public awareness campaign going on while families were visiting, and because they see this uptick in the months after. And so they have a helpline, and they're building awareness of their helpline, and people, family members making referrals, not just, doctors and health systems. And as you guys might know it, but I just learned I'm going to read this because it's new to me. The standard wisdom is that a consumer has to see a particular ad 7 times before the message of the ad will even begin to sink in. And to me, that was like quite a revelation, that how the impact of these ads on television and radio will spark the new idea to change one's behavior or to engage in something. So they took this step, they got this, they marketed their dementia services with a 30-second public service announcement. Doesn't seem like much, They were able to do this by getting an innovative agreement with Cox Communications, that is the local cable provider, and they partnered with them. What a great idea. Those guys all have to do sort of, not necessarily, they don't probably call it pro bono, but they do charity work, and usually, they're big in the community charity arena. And so they got this, the innovative agreement that covered production costs associated with the public service announcement, and offered a $1 for $1 match for airtime. So everything that they could pay for, they got more back. And they also provided them with guidance on this stations and specific programs that their targeted audience would be paying attention to. So, and as a result, they got themselves time slots on CNN, MSNBC, and the Fox Business Network. And they, to date, and Cox provides them metrics to demonstrate the impact of their efforts on the TV. And so far, they've got 7,000 people have seen their targeted their targeted media campaign. It's too soon to tell, but hopefully, things are going to continue to increase, and they, right now, apparently their phones are ringing off the hook. So that's a good thing. Another, with a budget that's working, is using Google Ads. I don't know that much about it. I imagine the folks at BRI, I understand that the folks at BRI are the pioneers in this, and so they know a lot more than I know. But basically, the Google Ads is a great way to disseminate awareness of their activities, and it saves by using the opportunity through Google Ads. We social workers don't have to go and figure out how to be IT experts along with doing our social work. And so it's, and we're seeing grantees hiring communication firms and that are specializing in this online promotion using Google Ads. And I think right now we have 3. So, and they offer paid advertisements, and it's up to like $10,000, I believe. But I imagine Bronca or someone will be able to give more information on that. But the BRI is, like I said, leader in the space, and there's more to come. But we're super excited, and I want to congratulate the folks at BRI for helping us all build our awareness of this opportunity for the aging network. And being so innovative. With that, that's sort of my spiel on the marketing. If I just want to go to the next slide, I'm going to do a shameless plug for our, I want to give you my closing points. So the closing points are: know your audience, meet them where they are. We good social workers, that's what we do, not where you think they should be. Make sure you have a well thought out marketing plan, marketing outreach plan before you launch a program. It will serve you well. Doing it right up front can support the overall sustainability of a program down the road. And if you build it and then go out there and let them know that you are there for them, you have a better chance of them coming to you. So that's, hopefully I've gotten my point across on that. Now with the next slide, I'm going to just do my shameless plug for ACL's Alzheimer's Disease Program Initiative. I'm not going to read all this. We have a state and a community program. We deliver, all of our grantees deliver those evidence-based and evidence-informed interventions. One of the things that, David was talking about is the ways that things can get paid for. You try those evidence-based interventions, and more there are initiatives to get those interventions paid for through Older Americans Act dollars and on state lists to deliver. So like David said, there are many interventions that don't necessarily have the evidence behind them right now, but it's worth taking a look to see if there's something out there that exists that meets your needs, and so that way you can support paid and unpaid caregivers with it. And next slide. This is a funding opportunity that I have coming up, and it'll be out on the street in the coming weeks, months, and you can find it on grants.gov. As you see, we have $23 million. The projects are 3 years, with $1 million the top and $400,000 is the floor of the least amount that the smallest grant that anybody would get. With next slide. And I just wanted to give a plug for the National Alzheimer's and Dementia Resource Center. We have a ton of tools on there that are not only we have a webinar series, all of our webinars. We have the tools that our resource center has built, but also the tools that some of our grantees, as we've been doing these grants all this time, if we have grantees that creates a tool that is particularly useful, nothing created under our grants is proprietary, so we make it available for everybody to benefit from. Your taxpayer dollars well at work. And next slide is just a couple of resources that I wanted to highlight for you. Obviously, best practice caregiving, then some other, we have some compendiums of evidence-based and evidence-informed interventions that our grantees have used. And then also the evaluating of some instruments for evaluating the impact of that work, which is so important, because if you evaluate the impact of your work, you don't have to recreate the research, but evaluate how it's being impacting your community. It gives you evidence to go to other funders in your community and your state, maybe legislature or whatever, to demonstrate the importance of what you're doing. And with that, I'm going to be quiet. And thank you. Next slide, just thank you. I think my contact information is there. If anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to give me a shout. As long as I don't have anything on the street in terms of advertisements for funding opportunities, I'm able to talk to anybody about anything.
Thank you, Erin. I think we have time for a couple of questions. The first one is there a program to train rehab and hospital personnel how to effectively communicate with people living with dementia?
There's a lot of curriculum out there to teach hospital staff. So important, so undertrained. The first place I would send you is the Health Service HRSA, HRSA. I always get it wrong. It's Health Resource Service Administration. They, through their GWEPs, their Geriatric Workforce Enhancement Programs, have developed wonderful training modules that I would say would be the best place to start for training professionals.
Sarah, can I just please add, Skills to Care is one of the programs in best practice caregiving that they may want to look at.
Thanks, David. So our next question is, COVID has changed a lot when it comes to getting people to attend trainings. As a marketing strategy, what do you suggest are some key tips to addressing this barrier to participation?
I think it is really just listening to the people and what they're able to do. Certainly the census in programs has declined. And at this point in time, now people have Zoom fatigue. So they are not as inclined to, or we've seen the numbers of people willing to do the virtual trainings as much. Some people are trying to do hybrids with, like, maybe if you have an 8-session intervention, sessions 1, 3, 5, and 5, and the final session are in person, and then the rest are remote. It's just, the key is being flexible and responding to how your community feels about doing that in-person thing. And don't cancel things, just say you're putting them off until you feel safe.
Good advice. So we are going to have to move on. If any of our speakers want to answer some of the last minute questions that came into the chat, feel free. But it is my honor to introduce our next speaker, Branka Premedica. Branka is the BRI Care Consultation Program Manager for the Center for Research and Education at Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging. She has over 15 years of experience with developing and managing initiatives to improve services for older adults with chronic conditions, persons with disabilities, and their family caregivers. In her current role, she is primarily responsible for evidence-based program implementation activities at licensed sites across the U.S., including logistics, onboarding, program adaptations, trainings, and technical assistance. She also serves as the Quality Improvement Director and Client Rights Officer for the Elder Care Services Institute at Benjamin Rose. She earned her bachelor's degree in sociology with a minor in business administration from Baldwin Wallace University and a master's in social work from The Ohio State University. Please join me in welcoming Branka.
Thank you, Sarah. I will take a few minutes to talk about BRI Care Consultation, the program that we are featuring for the remaining part of this conference, and then we'll introduce presenters from 4 sites that deliver the program. Okay, next slide. Thank you. So BRI Care Consultation addresses the needs of both the persons with the health condition and their family and friend caregivers by utilizing a brief assessment and identifying action steps to help the care situation. The program also utilizes an empowerment model where the care consultant helps guide, educate, and prioritize next steps. It is consumer-driven and is guided by individual and family preferences. Ongoing support is provided throughout the caregiving journey or is defined by funder guidelines. The goal is to ensure that the care consultant stays in touch with clients even if there are no current needs or action steps. We all know that care situations often change, so the ongoing outreach is important to ensure that clients have a safety net. The program is conveniently delivered by phone and email by care consultants who are trained in the fidelity of the program. There is an evidence-based protocol related to assessment, action plan, and ongoing support. At the same time, the program is flexible and allows for personalized content, especially when developing action steps. Lastly, in 11 controlled studies, there were improvements in caregiver and care receiver outcomes, including fewer unmet needs, symptoms of depression, less health and relationship strain, and reductions in ED and hospital readmissions. Next slide. So BRI Care Consultation provides 4 types of assistance. Families are often challenged by understanding eligibility and what services are appropriate for their care situation. So linking, coordinating, and monitoring health and social services is one of the main areas that is provided to individuals and families. Another area is involving family and friends to help in different ways. Care consultants provide guidance on how to best involve family and friends as well as professionals. And oftentimes care consultants facilitate discussions during family meetings to bring everyone together and agree on action steps moving forward. The information system that manages BRI care consultation is called the Care Consultation Information System, and it houses links to over 700 educational resources. So care consultants use a simple keyword search to identify resources to send to families and to schedule follow-up calls to review the information and pull relevant content to develop personalized action steps. Lastly, throughout the entire process, care consultants offer coaching and emotional support. Sometimes a care consultant is one of the only people that truly understands a caregiver situation, especially if there's resistance from family and friends. Next slide. So I will next talk about the main evidence-based components of the program. As you can see, it's assessment, action planning, and ongoing support. So very quickly, the assessment, next slide. The assessment is a series of targeted yes or no questions that trigger a problem or area of a need. So there are 24 for the care receiver and 11 for the caregiver. So the assessment domains or areas of care are holistic as they address both medical and non-medical domains. Examples are accessing services, healthcare concerns, personal and safety. I'll show a slide in a little bit that shows all of them. But the assessment process is mainly a safety net to ensure all potential concerns are discussed. It's different than a traditional assessment in that it's gradually completed over the course of the first few months after enrollment and reassesses as changes occur in each of the domains. Now, families often feel as though they are not being assessed, and this is intentional. The care consultant really aims for the assessment process to be more of an ongoing and formal discussion that is driven by clients with the support of the care consultant, which helps to foster an ongoing relationship. Also, families receive guidance and support almost immediately, even during the first contact. Next slide. The action planning process, again, begins as soon as the first session. So action steps are steps that guide families in alleviating problem areas and meeting needs. This is a collaborative effort between care consultants and families. It begins initially with addressing immediate needs and then moves on to long-term areas of need. So examples of action steps may include letting clients know where they can find help and information on a wide range of topics, maybe sending and reviewing educational materials, spreading caregiver tasks among family members and friends, or giving referrals to services and following up on referrals, as well as encouraging self-care and more. These action steps are incorporated into the action plan. And care consultants guide families with key pieces of information and guidance to prioritize these action steps, and then follow up on the status of the action steps and help troubleshoot and revise the action steps if the client has challenges with completing them. In addition, action steps are added, allowing the action plan to evolve over time, which helps respond to the changing needs and care situations. Next slide. Lastly, ongoing maintenance and support. This schedule is embedded in the care consultation information system for each case record. It ensures that care consultants are following up with families. For example, during the first 3 months, there are an average of at least 2 contacts per month, and then once a month, followed by every 3 months. So it kind of spreads over the course of enrollment. Of course, more frequent contacts are encouraged when needed. This schedule ensures that there is an ongoing relationship with a focus on maintaining connection and monitoring the caregiving situation, including checking in on action step progress. This also helps with responding to changing needs, symptoms of the illness or disability, or capacity or availability of caregivers. Next slide, please. So what you see on your screen now is a snapshot of the Ccis assessment domains, again, as they appear in the care consultation information system. The flags indicate that this is that the issue or the domain is triggered as a problem. And the flags turn yellow when that domain is resolved or at a stage where the family can manage it and it's under control. Now, the ones indicate that all the domains have been addressed at least one time, and anything greater than 1 indicates that the number of times that the domain was reassessed. So it's a great visual for care consultants to see. And when in the Ccis, the care consultant can click into each of those and see more information and even generate the report in a PDF. So it's very easy to enter information, to see it, and to use it as a resource when talking to clients. Next slide, please. Now here, what you see is a sample action plan. Note that the names are de-identified, they're fake names. The action plan outlines the action steps, who is responsible for the step, the status and the date of either when the action step was accomplished or when the action step is due if it's still in process. So it's very powerful when something like this is sent to individuals and families, as it guides them and reminds them what was discussed and mutually agreed with during the discussions with the care consultant. Next slide, please. So finally, care consultation information system guides these 3 evidence-based components. It mirrors a scientifically proven program, and it was developed specifically for the delivery of BRI care consultation. This helps promote standardized quality delivery with the goal of that the care consultant follows the protocols. Their clients will benefit from the same outcomes that was shown in research studies. The Ccis also includes reports for monitoring quality and a library of vetted links of over 700 educational resources. Next slide, please. So currently there are 31 licensed organizations across the country that deliver BRI care consultation. At one point we had 50, but there are a number of reasons why they were not able to stay in the program, especially with the hardships faced across the country the past couple of years. But we are happy to report that we have 4 new organizations onboarding in the next couple months and hope this growth will continue throughout the year. In addition to sustaining current sites, and mainly because this program helps communities, organizations, families, and individuals, especially who could truly benefit from something like this. So for today's presentation, we will learn about experiences from 4 of our wonderful sites, the Riverside Center for Excellence in Aging and Lifelong Health, Atlanta Regional Commission, Summit County Public Health, and the Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging. I would like to also note that these sites either launched their program or expanded their program with the ACL funds that Erin shared earlier. So I will move on to introducing Donna Barrett. Okay. So next speaker, Donna Barrett. Ms. Barrett has been with the Summit County Public Health Department since 2015, managing the health department's community health programs. She has over 20 years of program development, implementation, and management experience with a focus on geriatric health and chronic disease. Her clinical experience includes hospice, home care, geriatric assessment, and case management. She earned her bachelor's degree in social work from Cleveland State University in 1996 and received her social work license in 1997. She received her master's degree in social work from Cleveland State University in 2010. Please join me in welcoming Donna.
Thank you, Branka. I'm going to share my screen now. Can everyone see it?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you for having me and for inviting me, Benjamin Rose Institute. I'm glad to share our experiences here in public health with BRICC, and I'll talk a little bit about the history of why we chose to do the program, how it came about, and some of the information that I'll be sharing kind of piggybacks on what Erin said earlier about strategically how do you pick and choose a program. So first of all, as a public health department, we are required to do a community health assessment every 3 years, and through that process, we use the Summit County Coalition for Health Improvement. Those agencies are from across the whole county, from all walks of life, serve all populations. They come together, they choose the indicators, we do the assessment, we do some focus groups to get more primary data, and then we pull together a report. And so what our report shows is that we definitely have a need to be addressing aging issues and caregiving issues from the public health standpoint. In addition, because of that health assessment, we do a health improvement plan that focuses on those priority areas in our county, and aging is one of the 5 priority areas that we have been working on for the past 4 years. So as a result of both of these assessments and the improvement plan, the Public Health Department did not have a senior service unit. So that unit was developed in 2019. So we're fairly a new unit. And my role is to build aging services to address the public health needs of our older adult populations and adults and caregivers. So to help guide us, we kind of looked at our population, and we see that, you know, by 2030, we're going to have a senior population over 60 of about 30%. And we see with that population rise, we don't see the cost of funding rise. So we wanted to be able to address some of those high cost or high utilizations of dollars that we spend on providing care. And so we looked at what do we do here in Summit County and across the nation. And so in Summit County, Alzheimer's and dementia is the 5th leading cause of death. And as you see here, it's expected by 2050, I don't know why it keeps doing that, that $1.1 trillion will be spent in 2018, and $1 trillion will be spent by 2050 in providing care for folks with Alzheimer's disease. For caregivers, we looked at unpaid caregivers, and we know that 80% of caregivers are family or informal caregivers, and they provide all long-term care services. And there's a cost of over $5 billion to provide those services. So we here at the Health Department developed a strategic plan that would focus on dementia and caregiving. And we had goals, and one of the goals is, so that folks can age in the place they call home. And I kind of took that from our local area agency on the aging direction home. But our goal here is to ensure that older people, adults with disabilities, and caregivers have seamless access to information and services, enabling them and their loved ones to age in place. And we're really looking and focusing on quality of life as well. And then another one of our goals was to educate, empower, and ensure that older people, persons with disabilities, and their caregivers have access to evidence-based programming focused on active health, safe living, that will enable them to live as independently as possible. And so that's why we chose the BRI Care Consultation Program. We chose it because, one, we can assess through those domains, both the person with dementia and the caregiver, and we can track improvements, as Branka showed with the red flags. When you reassess and a need is met, you change that to a yellow flag, and that's a good outcome because that's no longer a trigger for that family, caregiver, or the person with dementia. We have local support for doing that program, and we have local support because we're so close to Benjamin Rose Institute. They're our neighbor in Cuyahoga County. And I was aware of the program for many years. So I felt that it was a good fit for us, and so did our Senior Independent Living Coalition. So we trained, we have 2 care consultation people trained here at the Health Department. We've been doing the program for about a year and a half. We get our referrals from different places. We have a gatekeeper program here. It's a program that identifies the at-risk older people living in the community. We get referrals from community members, first responders, doctors, Meals on Wheels volunteers, that an older adult needs assistance. And if there's a caregiver for that older adult, we try to move them into the BRI Care Consultation Program so that we can work with both the caregiver and the person with dementia. If they choose not to do that through the Gatekeeper Program, we still do work with both of those. We have a strong senior network here. So we get those referrals, and we get referrals through some of the trainings that we do. So we do a behavioral interventions trainings that's focused on helping caregivers manage behaviors. So there's tools that we teach. And then we talk about the care consultation program, BRI care consultation program, and give them referral information so that they can reach out to us if they'd like to learn more or register to become a client. So over the years, it's been a year and a half, we've tried to market the program in various ways. And so the first thing that we did was we got a press release when we got our funding from ACL, and we highlighted the programs that we were going to be doing. It went out to our papers, radios, and we found that some of our senior centers actually posted that information on their websites. And we actually got referrals to the BRI program from that, that press release. We developed our own webpage for senior and adult services here at the health department. We highlight BRI care consultation as one of the programs that we offer. We have links to the brochures so that folks can access more information. And we've also gotten a few referrals from there. Again, we do trainings in the community where we focus on caregiving and being able to help caregivers and get those referrals. We developed a prescription pad for physicians' offices, and we're in the process of how are we going to get that out to the physicians' offices. That looks and provides them education about BRI care consultation, and then they can just check it off on a prescription pad. It has our phone number on it and give it to caregivers, through geriatric assessment or wherever, a family caregiver may be seen, in hopes that they will call and seek assistance from us. We do a lot of outreach in the community. And I have to say a lot of the work that we planned, our marketing and outreach plan, really shifted because of COVID. So, doing outreach stopped and we weren't able to do that for a year. And then we were able to pick back up late last year. And we were able to get out to the community, and at these community events, they're focused on seniors and families. And we make sure that we have information about the services that we offer here at the health department for caregivers through the BRI-CC program. The other thing that we do is we have a coalition here within Ohio that are all offering the BRI-CC program, as Branka shared earlier. And so we meet monthly as a marketing committee. We have a marketing committee, and we talk about what other ways can we market the program. And there have been flyers developed that are easily readable for caregivers. And those are the information. Instead of a brochure, we take the flyer, it bullets the different information that we want caregivers to understand. We take those out to the events. We send them to caregivers who are interested in the program, and they're posted on our website. Through that committee, there was also a postcard developed that we was written to send to attorneys, so we can reach out to estate attorneys who may be working with estate planning and have family caregivers who need that type of assistance. Again, the flyers, and currently through our marketing committee here with Benjamin Rose Care Consultation, we're looking at developing a hotline, a state hotline, so that folks can call that hotline to leave a message and get referred to the appropriate service provider in their area, in the county that they live. And so we're just coming up with a name and a phone number, and we just discussed that this week. So we're pretty excited about that getting rolled out. And then finally, we look at sustainability. And so when I talk about the things that we've done with marketing, the BRI-CC program, some things we've been more successful at, again, because of COVID, some things we've had to delay because of COVID. But I think one of the things that we need to look at as a provider of the service is, how do we sustain that program? And so you know, through networking, we're all talking about how do we sustain the program. Yes, we need to build our base and our marketing, and we know the program does and has great outcomes because the research shows that the BRI-CC program has great outcomes. But, you know, our goal here in Summit County Public Health is to reach out to our state leadership and our federal leaders to talk about how do we sustain these programs, you know, across the country. They need to be sustained. And do we do that through insurance? Do we do that through federal funding? And that's to be looked at. So that's what I have for you all today. Just a reference page. And I don't know if we're doing questions now or if we're waiting till the end.
So we're going to wait until the end for questions, but we have been answering some questions in the chat. So Donna, feel free to also answer questions in the chat if you wish, and then we will wait until the end for all the presenters present, and we will hopefully have some time.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you again, Donna. Our next speaker is Dr. Christine Jensen, Director of Health Services Research with the Riverside Center for Excellence in Aging and Lifelong Health in Williamsburg, and facility affiliate in the Department of Gerontology at Virginia Commonwealth University. She obtained her PhD in Human Development and Family Studies with a specialty in gerontology from the University of Delaware. She is active with the Gerontological Society of America, past president of the Southern Gerontological Society, and serves on the Advisory Council of the Virginia Center on Aging and the Lindsay Institute for Innovations in Caregiving. She is past chair of the Virginia Caregiver Coalition. The Center for Excellence in Aging has been honored with a 2013 Commonwealth Council on Aging Best Practices Award for her work with family caregiver programming, and with a 2012 Best Practice Award by Southern Gerontological Society. Dr. Jensen is a master trainer of the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregivers and was named the 2015 Applied Gerontologist of the Year by the Southern Gerontological Society. The center was named the 2018 Rosalind Carter Leadership and Caregiving Awardee, the highest award given in caregiving. Her current work focuses on programming and person-centered training to support family and professional caregivers. It is my pleasure to now turn it over to Christine.
Thanks, Bronca. And thanks, Donna. I'll be able to dovetail nicely on some of your experiences. So everybody okay with the first slide here? You can see that.
Yes, we can.
So I wanted to start with kind of a thank you that came in for a handwritten note that you see here, and it may be small. I'm just going to highlight a few pieces of it to let you know about our experience here offering the BRI Care Consultation Program in Virginia. So, and our care consultant who was previously in this role gave permission because her name is shown there, but not the name of the client who participated. But she wrote a personal note, this wife caring for her husband, to state that the care consultant has helped me through countless times of difficulty by giving support and resource material. She's helped me understand how to best meet my husband's needs and how to respond to him. Her service has really been invaluable. We who care for our loved ones with dementia need the BRI Care Consultation Program to help us through these difficult and years ahead. So I just wanted to kind of start by sharing that this personal impact for this wife. So we're really pleased to be with you all today and to be a partner of the Benjamin Rose Institute. So I wanted to let you know, just kind of provide a little bit of context about where we sit here in Virginia and the areas of focus for our center. So our center is a part of the health system. We are called CIL for short, the Center for Excellence in Aging and Lifelong Health. So when you heard Dr. Bass mention earlier that there is a fairly large percentage of programs that are set within health systems, we would be one of those. So we have a fairly moderate to large size health system here in the eastern part of Virginia, about 9,500 employees, and we provide a large range of services from acute care to hospice care and everything in between, a large number of long-term care communities as well. So we're fortunate that we have a number of folks we can serve even directly within our health system, including our own team members in a program like this. But our center sits in one of our geographic areas here in Williamsburg, Virginia. And our focus in our center is to provide health services research, of which this program fell under, but we also provide direct services, direct clinical services, a geriatric assessment clinic and a driving clinic. And then we do quite a bit of community engagement. So when we had the opportunity to apply for, and we're fortunate to receive the ACL funding that Erin spoke of, we called this our Dementia Wellness Project, and it really cut across all 3 areas of our focus. So I realize the map is somewhat faded, but if you wanted a update on some Virginia geography, particularly the eastern part of our state, you can see where Williamsburg sits, Richmond, our state capital, off to the west. And we really are in terms of this part of the state, around a number of what we call peninsulas. And we have a number of waterways. The James River is the predominant in our area, but a lot connecting back to the Chesapeake Bay and then to the Atlantic Ocean. And so the reason I share that with you is because it means that we have a lot of land that is separated by water. And so we have a lot of bridges and tunnels that we need to be particularly sensitive to in terms of individuals being able to come and access programs. And that was one of the reasons we were so interested in the Benjamin Rose Care Consultation Program, because it's rooted in a real virtual delivery anyway, through phone and email-based programming. I'll let you know a little bit about how we have deployed that. So again, we were fortunate to receive 3 years of funding through the Alzheimer's Disease Program Initiative, the ADPI area of funding that Erin Long mentioned under the Administration for Community Living. And so we just recently wrapped that up, and I'm pleased to tell you that we were not only able to bring in the Benjamin Rose Care Consultation Program as a new evidence-based program to us here in Virginia as a part of that funding, but we've now been able to expand and extend that. So I will wrap up shortly with telling you about the sustainability piece. But we were, really partnered with Bronca and Dr. Bass and their team right away in providing us with orientation and demonstration about how the program worked. We had been introduced briefly to the program through the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregivers, which we had a long partnership with, and they were the first to make us aware of the Benjamin Rose Care Consultation Program. So in January of 2019, we were able to hire a full-time dementia care consultant. Her salary was covered in about 80 to 90% by the grant funds. And then we also identified a backup dementia consultant. Both of these individuals were nurses. So as I walk you through our journey of implementing the Benjamin Rose Care Consultation Program, and I use the word journey very deliberately because we did feel like it was, and it continues to be a journey in offering the program. But we also use the word journey with the families that we serve through this program and our other programs here at the center. So we want to give folks a visual and a word they can relate to about what the experiences are like, for good and for bad, about providing care to a loved one or friend with memory loss. So in February of 2019, just to quickly move you through our timeline, Bronca and her team were able to provide virtual training to us while they sat in Ohio and we sat here in Virginia to learn about all the details, all the domains, the Ccis, the software program, and reporting and metric features. And so some of those metrics that we were particularly interested in, because we wanted to be able to report that back to ACL, included things like perceived stress of the family caregivers that were participating, and emergency room and hospitalization experiences for the persons that they were caring for. So we had an opportunity to engage in mock cases and really give the care consultants the opportunity to feel very comfortable before they launched into taking their first clients. We have a geriatric assessment clinic here and a memory care clinic in our health system about 30 minutes from us. And so both of those were predominant referral sources to hand off to the dementia care consultant to be able to receive this service. And we also partnered with some of our neurology practices here in our health system. So I mentioned something a minute ago about some of the evaluation that we wanted to monitor for reporting back to ACL. And so we were able to, with a combination of the software that the Benjamin Rose Institute makes available, Ccis, and some SurveyMonkey tools that we set up, pretty well monitor both at baseline and at 6 months, and then at closure, the experience of the dyads, both the caregiver and the a person they were caring for, and their experiences as they journeyed through the care consultation. So just a quick view of the individuals we were looking to market to and target to participate in. And so persons living with dementia and their family caregivers or care partners. Did the person living with dementia also have a chronic condition? Did they live alone? Or express the need for more support and guidance, and were they open to care consultation? Because it is a big commitment, and we want folks to understand that. This is intended to be a journey of 6 to even 12 months, and then ongoing support as needed with the care consultant. And that isn't for everyone. So we wanted to make sure they understood the opportunity, and if the timing wasn't right, that they could come back to us at another time to engage. So you see our goals, they're not particularly large numbers, but because it's pretty time intensive, but especially upfront in enrolling individuals and capturing information about the domains, these were our goals for each of the years that we were in the grant. We were able to not only meet these, but exceed these goals. So Donna mentioned about marketing and communication with other partners in the community. Erin was speaking about this as well. And so I'll just follow to say that, you know, you've seen the map, you understand kind of the geographic footprint of our health system. And so we wanted to again, be very sensitive to where individuals might be coming from and how they would be connected to us. There are a large number of programs, not only at our center, but in the greater communities that we serve, that provide support to families. And so while we wanted to help individuals understand what might be a program that is accepting referrals and which ones might be most appropriate to them. And we were fortunate to say that, you know, we were accepting new referrals into what we called our dementia care consultation program, the Benjamin Rose Institute Care Consultation. So we were also working to track in our electronic health record, that's EPIC, which is fairly widely known and used. That allowed us to communicate with the primary care physician of the caregiver and or patient who were a person living with dementia who were participating in the program, and also to make referrals to palliative care and hospice care where needed, and to loop in sometimes a pharmacist to look at opportunities to change the pharmacological interventions or to actually work with the family to learn about some behavior support that would be non-pharmacological in nature. So our external partners included our area agencies on aging, of which there are 2 that cover our service area here for our health system, so working with our Alzheimer's Association chapters, and particularly through their caregiver support groups, in-home care providers and respite care agencies, adult day programs both within and outside of our healthcare system, and transportation providers, memory care facilities, and then we also help sponsor a memory cafe. And so that was a nice link to making the participants in the cafe aware of this program. So David talked earlier about some of the challenges and successes, and so I want to just mention a few of these to you as I wrap up. So we were grateful to have marketing individuals on the Benjamin Rose Institute team who provided templates and materials to us that we were able to customize for our deployment of the program. And so we used what we called an introduction postcard that had a picture of our care consultants on it, just to really help when we couldn't always meet with them face to face and provide that warm handoff, that they had at least an idea of who this individual was and their background when we followed up to reach out and invite them to be a part of the program. As I mentioned, it can be time intensive, and so we wanted to make sure our care consultants built in the time for the pre-assessment, and they did prefer to meet face-to-face, although that wasn't always an option. Again, with a clinic setting that we had here and the care consultant on site the days that the clinic was in session, there was an opportunity for that, but it didn't always work. We did learn that many of our persons living with dementia were fairly advanced with the disease, and so that meant they weren't always able to fully engage or participate. And so while we were counting and tracking them as a dyad, and in many of the cases, I would say in 80% or more, it was the primary caregiver family member that we were predominantly working with through as they moved through this journey. I think this was raised earlier, maybe even in a chat. So when you're a care consultant providing the resources and the support, or listening to maybe a challenging or new experience that the caregiver is having and is looking for some additional support, and that's done via the phone, if the person living with dementia is nearby, they're in that room or in an adjoining room, that did present some challenges that we tried to be sensitive to, because we knew the caregiver couldn't fully be honest or disclose while the care receiver was nearby. And so scheduling became particularly important. Or can I call you when you're on your way to the grocery store or on your way to work? Or can we email about some of these things, if that would make it a little bit of a safer open space for you to communicate about these things. And then like others, we experienced some challenges with the pandemic, although I'll have to share that our care consultants found a blessing or a silver lining in the pandemic, in that when folks were isolating and they took that so seriously, especially in the spring and summer of 2020, that it was our caregivers were more accessible to reach. They were more likely to be at home, and it wasn't quite as challenging to follow up on some of those calls and those appointments. I did want to show you that one of the creative interventions that we tried during the height of the pandemic is we already had a wonderful relationship with a local knitting guild. And so they knit these twiddle muffs. And if you aren't familiar with twiddle muffs, just would encourage you to Google that word, and you'll find the origins in the UK that has come to the US. And there are instructions for how to make these sensory activity and calming tools, which are just these knitted muffs. And so I invited our knitting guild to make both muffs and the homemade masks. And then we distributed those to both the caregiver and care receiver that were participating in the care consultation program. So a few more lessons learned before I wrap up is that as Erin said earlier, caregivers are busy. And not only busy with the demands of their own family and caring for their loved one or several loved ones, but that they're also working in many cases. And so it did make it extremely important that our care consultants are flexible, and even evenings and weekends that they would offer to be available to stay in touch with the dyads. Determining if there's a preference around email or a Zoom call, for example, or can I come see you in your home? And so we've started to explore the opportunities for how we might deploy home visits, and then making sure there's time to document, especially when there's an electronic medical record and the Ccis and other resources in which we want to track and make sure that we've noted that those have been shared with the families. In terms of sustainability, we're very fortunate that there's another group here that is offering the Benjamin Rose Care Consultation Program in Virginia, and that's at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville. It's about 2 hours from us. And they actually have 3 care coordinators that are currently providing their program. They are situated within their neuropsychology program. And they have been fortunate to receive General Assembly funding that is providing funds for 2 of those 3 care consultants. And so we'll actually be talking with members of the General Assembly next week here in Virginia as they are currently in session, to talk about how we might be able to expand that funding to support more care consultants, including ones that we would like to have here and in other parts of the state. So probably the best news for us is that as our grant was wrapping up with our funding from the Administration for Community Living, we did have a donor that we did not solicit, but they reached out to the foundation that sits within our health system. And they had received some programming and support for caring for a loved one with memory loss, actually not through the Benjamin Rose Care Consultation Program, but another program within Riverside, within our health system. But they really appreciated the evidence-based programming that we were bringing and making available in the community through the Benjamin Rose Care Consultation Program, and the idea around a navigator that, again, could walk with somebody through their journey. And so we have now instituted the Memory Care Navigation Program. That's really an extension of the Benjamin Rose Care Consultation Program. And this individual came on board in October and is starting to take referrals also from primary care and from our acute care settings like our hospitals. So we're very fortunate. This donor funds cover about 80 to 90% of what we believe would be the annual program cost at this time. with that said, I will wrap up and pass it to the next presenter.
Thank you, Christine. That was wonderful information. We'll move on to our next speaker, Ginger Raggins. Ginger has volunteered and worked in the aging industry for over 40 years, starting as far back as tagging along with her grandmother in rural South Georgia, visiting the sick, feeding the hungry, and helping the needy. From those early adventures, Ginger's passion grew in advocacy work for older adults. Ginger holds a master's in applied gerontology from Brunel University and is a credentialed gerontologist and certified aging in place specialist. She was inducted into the Brunel University Hall of Fame for her aging work. She is an adjunct instructor with Georgia Southern University, teaching death and dying and aging classes in the Department of Sociology and Anthropology. She created an assistive technology lab that serviced 13 counties and served as a model in the state of Georgia. The Georgia Department of Human Services recognized her with the Excellence in Assistive Technology Service Delivery Award. Ginger has testified in front of the Georgia Senate Health Committee about how assistive technology can help older adults age in place. Subsequently, the state approved $157,000 in funding for assistive technology to be used by the ADRCs in the state to purchase assistive technology for consumers. Ginger served in the past as a BRI care consultant where she shared her experiences as a caregiver for her mother-in-law. She currently serves as the ADRC Consumer Information Services Manager with Atlanta Regional Commission Area Agency on Aging. She is responsible for managing all aspects of consumer information services, including direct management and oversight of the information counseling team, assistive technology, BRI care consultation, and the ePro resources team. Ginger, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Bronca, and thank you, everyone. We're having a storm right now in Atlanta, and my power flickered out earlier, so let's keep our fingers crossed that we stay on. I'll get right to it. Again, Bronca did a great introduction of myself. I am housed here in the Area Agency on Aging in the Atlanta area. We cover 10 counties here in the Metro Atlanta area. And as Bronca mentioned, I oversee the BRI consultation program, and I was a BRI care consultant. And I love working with this program because I feel that I can assist those families because I've been a caregiver myself. All right, you've got on the next slide. Thank you. A little history about BRI here at the Atlanta Regional Commission. We have been licensed since June 30th, 2010 as part of an ACL project. We were part of a 3-year grant. Here we are almost 12 years later, and we are still providing BRI care consultation in the Metro Atlanta region. Pretty incredible, right? We fund this program by using our state Alzheimer's project dollars. There is no cost to the caregiver to participate in our BRI program. Next slide. We initially had one care consultant to manage the program, but last year we saw our volume increase due to COVID. We changed our structure and now have a lead caregiver specialist, BRI care consultant, who handles 30% of the caseload, and a full-time BRI care consultant that covers 70%. Currently, we have 83 cases, and before I logged on to our conference, my lead told me that she had 9 referrals. Keep in mind that we do discharge approximately 8 to 12 clients per month, and that is due to the end of service. They've passed away or no contact. So far for fiscal year 22, we have handled 152 cases. Next slide. We have recently started with marketing our BRI program to the below agencies so we can spread our reach. Of course, internal within our ADRC, and that is reminding internal staff, to refer people to BRI. We work with powerful tools for caregivers, the Alzheimer's Association, Lewy Body Dementia, the Center for Pan-Asian Community Services, Latin American Association, hospice agencies, local hospitals, faith communities, and local senior and social service agencies. Our marketing outreach plan consists of emailing our brochure and requesting to speak with their group virtually. Some agencies we call and discuss BRI when we've been lucky enough to obtain a contact. Next slide. The majority of our referrals come in through our ADRC, the Aging and Disability Resource Connection. This is where we receive calls from caregivers looking for help for their loved ones. For those of you not familiar with an ADRC, it is a no wrong door access point for free information requests and assistance. We serve as the front desk for older adults, persons with disabilities of all ages, families, caregivers, and professionals who need help navigating life changes and surprise obstacles in their home, with their health, and in their community. Our goal is to empower individuals to make informed choices and to provide easier access to long-term support. Next slide. When we make that initial contact, the caregiver is able to unload in the safe space that the care consultant has provided via the telephone. The caregiver will start listing off some of the barriers that keep them from enrolling in support programs, such as services are not available in my area, or there's a wait list, or there might be a cultural barrier. They're not wanting to ask for help, or they don't want an outsider coming in. And then, of course, we saw with COVID, caregivers are not wanting strangers coming in and exposing their loved ones. Then when we start the conversation more in detail, we hear, what is Alzheimer's? I don't understand. I don't know who to call for help. I can't afford in-home services. I can't work and take care of my loved one. Can I get paid to be a caregiver? I really need help in figuring out how to juggle my job, my spouse, my children, and ailing parent. How do I find time for me? I need other resources like incontinence supplies, support groups, or a therapist, but don't know where to start. Next slide. After listening to the caregiver's concern, we say, we can help you with that. And this is how we engage the caregiver. We explain that we can help with improving care, provide educational materials on the physical impairments, reduce caregiver stress and burnout, reduce relationship strain, coordinate healthcare and community services, decrease embarrassment and isolation, improve access to information, and we are accessible. Of course, we do so much more, but this is just a few to list. Next slide. Sometimes there may be issues that are out of our control, and we do our best to reach out to other agencies for assistance. We tell the caregiver that we would like to join the caregiver journey with them to help navigate the roadblocks and detours. We're actually pretty good drivers, and we have some excellent roadmaps. This is also a great icebreaker. When that caregiver hears you say you want and can help them, you can hear their sigh on the other end of the phone. Sometimes the caregivers will break down and cry because they have felt so overwhelmed, but they have found someone that understands, and this is our success. Next slide. Some approaches that have been less successful when we reach out, maybe the caregiver is not ready to commit because they think they have everything under control, or they can't manage one more call. When we get a caregiver like this, we always say, we understand, but let me send you my brochure and contact information. I want you to save this in case you need it down the road. And actually, we have had people call us several months later and say, I need you now, can you help? And of course we do. Next slide. As you can tell, we are very passionate BRI care consultants here at the Atlanta Regional Commission. We love what we do. We are proud to provide relevant and timely information to help caregivers make informed choices about their long-term care needs. It is not a one-size-fits-all service. We customize information and resources based on their preference and need. Thanks. That was pretty quick.
Thank you so much, Ginger. That was wonderful. Our last speaker of the day is Lisa Weitzman. Lisa is the Director of Strategic Partnerships at the Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging and manages We Care Because You Do, Benjamin Rose's delivery of BRI care consultation. She is primarily responsible for driving new and innovative partnerships for Benjamin Rose with healthcare systems, healthcare payers, and the business community. Lisa has devoted her social work career to working with marginalized, vulnerable populations. She has a special passion for social determinants of health as they pertain to older adults aging well in the community. Lisa holds a Bachelor's of Arts degree in history with a concentration in American Foreign Policy from Yale University, a master's degree in Soviet Studies and International Economics from the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies, and an MSW from Case Western Reserve University. Lisa?
Thank you so much, and thank you to all of you who have stuck with us to the end. I look forward to talking with you. I need to first start with a thank you. A thank you to Benjamin Rose's Board of Directors, senior management, and most importantly to the We Care team, because this We Care venture of the last 3 years would not have been possible without the constant support and care and roll up your sleeves, dig in that we've gotten from everybody at our organization. Next slide, please. So as we mentioned at the beginning, We Care is actually the name of the licensed site that Benjamin Rose has for the delivery of BRI care consultations. We started this venture just about 3 years ago. And really, We Care was an interesting venture because we already had 2 licensed sites of BRI care consultation in Cleveland and several others nearby. And so we needed to find a way that what we offered and what we did didn't compete not only with our licensed sites directly in our footprint, but also with our other licensed sites all around the country. And so as a result, We Care really became a sea change or a huge shift in how we see and talk about ourselves and the work that we do. We started to think about ourselves as a for-profit business. We had to take risks. We had to put ourselves in front of non-traditional audiences, and we really had to reimagine who was our end user. Because at the end of the day, our key strategic question was, how do we get more scale from our evidence-based program? And for us, that meant, how do we take the core of what BRI care consultation is? And how do we explore how this might become a solution in other channels of distribution outside of our traditional community-based organization partners? Today, we are now engaged with the business community, with healthcare providers and payers, and we are the delivery service and support for other community-based organizations. Next slide, please. So let's start with what were our greatest challenges. The first was a lack of knowledge. Most people didn't know who we were. Some people weren't even familiar with who Benjamin Rose is, even though we've been in our own community for over 113 years. So our goal was, how do we get in front of people so they know about us before they need us? The second challenge, and I think everybody can relate to these, is that fear around asking for help. How do we talk about something that people don't want to talk about? How do we provide support for people who don't want to talk about aging, who are afraid of aging, and who still see help as a 4-letter word? And lastly, we fought a lot around the misperceptions about caregiving. How do we talk about a program in a world where people aren't comfortable talking about caregiving, where they don't identify as a caregiver, and therefore don't see themselves as eligible or in need of the services that we provide? Next slide, please. So today I want to share some of the strategies that we have used, and really, how have we taken this evidence-based program and become entrepreneurs within Benjamin Rose? And next slide. And in many ways, our lessons learned reflect a lot of what Erin said at the beginning. So the first thing we've learned and that we want to share is, know your core message and flex it. I think the most important thing we learned is that we had to figure out how to talk about what we do to people who have no idea what caregiving is, have never really interacted with a community-based organization, and tell them about it in less than 30 seconds. The other thing we needed to figure out was, what does our program look like? What does our solution feel like? How does our brand talk? And what does it sound like? And while that sounds really strange, we actually went down the path for about 3 or 4 months of working with a marketing brand consulting organization when we changed our name and launched the We Care Because You Do brand. We really spent a lot of time on this. And while at the time I wondered, is this really a beneficial exercise? I will tell you that it has paid back for us in spades. We can come back over and over to those takeaway phrases that we know talk about us the way we want it. We know what we want our audience to understand. When we have a good sense of why our program is important to so many different audiences. Next slide, please. The second thing we learned was talk to anyone and everyone. And really, it's in these conversations that we've learned so much about how to frame our own message. We've also learned that we have to have multiple messages. One message, one elevator speech doesn't work because each audience is looking for something different from us. And we need to be nimble and agile enough that we show our program as the solution for the problem that they particularly face. The other thing we've done a lot of is networking. We've joined networking groups that even have maybe more professions that we wouldn't necessarily think of networking with. Plumbers, painters, electricians. Everybody has a network. Everybody has a need. And in this way, we've begun to spread the word, not only about what We Care does, but what all the programs and services that Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging can offer as well. Next slide, please. The third thing we really worked on was, how do we tell our story? And as we came to think about it, the main thing that we focused on is making our audience the hero. We're not the hero. Even BRI Care Consultation or We Care is not the hero. But we really worked to figure out how could we make whatever audience we're talking about the hero of our story. And with that, it also meant constantly redefining who the villain is. The villain might be all the challenges of caregiving. The villain for an employer might be absenteeism and presenteeism. The villain might be caregiver burnout and stress. But however we defined that villain, we made sure that the audience was the hero, whether it's the family themselves, an employee, or the employer. And the program became the hero's superpower. Next slide, please. At the end of the day, I think our most important lesson learned and message to share with you is this idea of perseverance. When we started out, we felt like there was no wrong way and no right way. But we had to just dig in and develop a lot of resiliency. And hopefully we can think that we're finally on that path towards success. Next slide, please. So what does that really mean? For us, it's really meant sticking with it, trying and trying again. If the audience doesn't understand our message, going back to that audience with a different message, going back to an audience with a new way of telling that same story to figure out what really will resonate, and then how do we push that story forward. The second, it really goes along with that networking. How do we become a constant presence in the market? How are we just always there at every meeting as a part of every conversation? And in that way, getting our story out. We've become presenters at so many different events, from talking about things directly related to dementia, to talking about the secret to retirement, and anything and everything in between. Ways that we could get ourselves out there, and always ending with a little twist on how We Care is a part of the solution to the problem that they're facing. We've had to continually reinvent ourselves. Initially, we figured out what we thought would be our best channels of distribution. Some of them have worked, and to be honest, some of them have proven to be dead ends. But we've learned from them, we've been nimble, and we've responded to opportunities in the market. And we found that persistence and consistency breeds the results that we are looking for. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa. So unfortunately, we have run out of time for questions, but any questions that were not answered in the chat will be shared with our speakers to respond to following today's webinar. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you to our presenters for sharing all their great information. In the chat, you should find a link for a webinar evaluation that we hope you will complete. Your feedback is important to us as it helps us to improve our programming. The link will also be shared with you in an email soon. We hope you plan to join us for future webinars that we hold throughout the year. More information can be found about all Benjamin Rose research, services, programs, webinars, and events at www.benrose.org. Thank you, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.